Welcome into episode 21 of Ramie and Drew. I am Ramie Makloff. That's Drew Flaggy. Over there, we're a couple of Milwaukee-based comedians talking sports and whatever else comes to mind. And joining us today, he was always one of my favorite guys to talk Bucks with back in the day on The Fan. It is Ty Windisch of the Gyro podcast. Ty, always a pleasure, man. Long time no talk. How you been? Let's start there.
I'm doing well. I heard you were back. I think I was late to it, but thrilled. So it kind of made it a great day right there, Rami. So appreciate you having me on. There's a lot of Bucks crap out there right now. So I'm hoping, if we spend any time here talking about anything besides that, that'll also make my day much better to focus on, the non-sound bites related to the Bucks at the moment.
Yeah, the Bucks crap is something that we not that we cover seriously here, but that we sort of talk through to try
Yeah.
to sift through the crap and see what's useful in their time. Let me ask you to start. Two-part question to start. What's the highest your Bucks panic level has been in this season, and where is it at right now? And those can be the same answer. Maybe it's at its peak right now.
No, I think All-Star, moved me off the ledge a bit, seeing Dame flourish. I mean, I know it's really meaningless competitions, but I do think I don't know how much worse the looks he's missing with the Bucks are than three-point contest or All-Star game looks, right? Like if they don't need him to only make contested shots. If Dame hits all the wide open shots when teams, drift toward Giannis or leave him alone, the Bucks would be a killer team. So I think just the confidence of going winning the three-point shootout, All-Star game MVP, all the half quarters, that kind of stuff. And then Shaq telling him, like, hey, go take your season, like grab guys by the neck, like take charge. I think that was needed. So I'm not as panicked now as I was going into the break. Going into the break, looking at Dame's 2024 numbers, seeing everyone come off the bench just look so old and so slow outside of AJ Green, who's not like a 99th percentile athlete by any means, but maybe looks like it next to some of the other guys, the older guys they tried out. The way Damon played Chris's injury, which I think he'll be okay. I think he'll be back pretty soon here after the break, but obviously he missed time, and that's always concerning. The panic level was high, like probably 8 or 9 out of 10, just because, I mean, if this trade, if Dame doesn't show up like he did, like the version we saw in the All-Star break, I don't know what they do. I really don't. Like they kind of just cooked themselves with that trade, which everyone loved. Everyone thought it was a great trade. I did. I certainly wasn't sitting there like, yeah, he might just inexplicably be bad. I don't think anyone expected that, at least at this point. So the panic level was quite high, but just seeing Dame recapture some of that magic, I think calmed me down quite a bit. Now we'll see how he looks Friday, like going forward. But certainly I'm not as panicked as I was last week at this point.
The word I've been using is annoyed a lot.
Yeah.
Just annoyed at how they've been playing, and particularly Dame. And I'm a big Damian Lillard fan. Like he's my favorite player in the league. Like I've said this on almost every episode of this podcast so far, and it's just not getting even close to what he was last year in Portland is what was concerning. Where it's like he was getting doubled all of last year. He was the only guy they were trying to stop on that team. But he's playing like Anthony Simons right now, where he's missing open shots, and the shot quality that he's getting with Giannis out there and all the spacing that they have. I'm just like, what's going on with some of these shots? Because they are easy bunnies by his standard. And I just use the word annoyed. So like I wouldn't have gone as high as an 8 or a 9. My panic level was at like a 4, but it's more with irritation.
Your annoyance level was at a 9 when it comes to Dame.
Oh, my annoyance level after we lost to Portland and then losing to Memphis, my annoyance level was at like a 15 out of 10. Like I was not happy after
The last two for me, I was at 15 after these last two losses, where it's just like these are the teams that the Bucks of every other season since Giannis got this good, they just almost always just steamroll. Like it doesn't even matter if they're shooting variance. And to see them just get pretty much killed by Miami and Memphis, and I kind of feel it going into the Memphis game too. I remember Giannis was questionable and then upgraded to probable the day of the game. And I remember I tweeted something like, this is like very concerning if Giannis doesn't play. Like I just had a feeling like the way they've been playing, like and Giannis did play, and Giannis goes 15 for 17 from the field, and they still get stomped by G.G. Jackson and Troy Jemison and a bunch of other creative players that Memphis has to go through the season with because their injury report is historic. So yeah, annoyance way higher than panic. I agree with you there. 15 for most of the last week here.
And Ty, I don't know if I'm like if I like talk myself into stuff, you know what? I think we all do that as
Oh, yeah.
fans. You know, like when things are bad, we're like, it's not that bad. But like I've been pretty calm throughout because like call me crazy. I don't think Dame forgot how to shoot a basketball. And I think Chris Middleton is gonna be back and at least somewhat healthy here soon. And I saw somebody tweet it was one of my Bucks follows. It might have been you. I don't know. Tell me if it was. They put Dame's numbers from December along with the Bucks record and where all their rankings were and everything. And they were great. They were like the first or second best team in the NBA in just about every ranking or statistical category that you could think of. And I for one go, well, Dame is gonna figure it out. When it happens, that's what this Bucks team is gonna look like, if not even better. When you look at the defensive improvement since they fired Adrian Griffin, like I know the scoring is going to be there, and if the defense is just slightly improved from what we saw earlier in the season, it should be more than enough scoring for this team to make a deep run. Am I oversimplifying things when I say that?
No, not really. I didn't do an in-depth breakdown of like his numbers plus the team numbers, but I think after the Memphis game or like around then, I did just put out like the splits for him month over month the whole season. And you can see like October, November, okay, not very good by his standards. December, very good. I mean, it's still like 28 points. It's not the 35 he's doing last year for periods, but of course, so many touches to Giannis to Chris. Like you don't expect the raw scoring to be there, but his efficiency was off the charts. The Bucks were killer in December. January and February, like sub 30% from three those 2 months for Dame combined. I think one of them is just above. And they've been pretty bad. I mean, all of the new year so far, right? I mean, that was January when it really, like some of the West Coast, it's a lot of it too. You can't, there's been some of it there on their West Coast trips. Those are always going to be difficult, and availability and the coaching change and all this. But if you just look at how Dame has played, like, and I think still, what are they, 13-3 if he scores like just 25 in a game? Not, 40, not a crazy number. If Dame scores 25, they very rarely lose. Like they're dominant in those games. So I don't think it's an oversimplification. They still have like bench issues. They have to figure out how to use, I think, Bobby Portis better, more strategically, get more out of him. I mean, they've been horrible when the bench comes into games, which that is a big deal. You're going to thin that rotation in the playoffs, but you don't want to be horrible when your bench comes into games. But I do think like get it figured out with Dame, and whether that's continuing to tweak how he plays, just him, grabbing hold in the offense board, just variance coming back, and maybe he's now due to be just insanely hot the rest of I would certainly take that trade. I'll trade January and February for April, May, and a little bit of June for sure. I'd like to start earlier than then, but you get my point. Whatever makes it happen, right? Whatever the clause, what the reason is, I think if Dame plays really well, they're going to be really hard to beat and maybe just win a title, because we've seen Giannis. It's all the way there. This is the best Giannis we've ever seen. He's been incredible. He's going to have the first 30-point on 60% from the field shooting season ever, which I still can't believe. Like, I still need to go look at the Wilt numbers. I can't believe he's never done that, but he's going to do it for the first time ever. Like they have enough at the top. I think they can scrape through the rotation. I think they can find enough playable guys for a playoff series. If Dame is, I looked at the last 20 games of that Portland season you talked about, Drew, last year. So I was like, did he trail off? Like, were there warning signs that we just missed to get Dame? No, 35 points per game over his last 2 months in Portland. He was incredible. Shot like 38, 39% from three, as you say, like being chased around, double teamed, all this other stuff. So I don't really think it's an oversimplification. Maybe we can drill down deep into like how much do they need Marjon Beauchamp or Andre Jackson just so they have an athlete and this kind of stuff. But they could just be okay on defense if Dame is, peak or close to it, Dame, and Giannis is the Giannis we've seen. Plus you have Chris out there. I mean, their offenses, I don't think any team should be able to score more effectively than them. It's hard to beat that team in the playoffs, especially when you have the back line of Giannis and Brook to rely on. So I think that's the maddening part about their season. It is kind of that simple. Is that going to happen? It hasn't happened since December. If it happens now, great. But I don't know exactly what they can do to make Dame be Dame again.
Well, and things that people keep talking about too is like, well, we have the two coaching changes here. You got Griffin, new system, Doc Rivers, new system. Malik Beasley's also been through this, and he was the guy that was just getting raked over the coals for being just awful on defense. Under Doc Rivers, he's looked like an actual defensive player for stretches. And when you need him to cause a little bit of chaos out there, not foul, but strip a ball, poke at a ball, he's been actually really good in this like 10-game stretch. And that so it's like this is a Dame problem right now, in my opinion, because everyone else is at least somewhat figuring this out. because there were eighth, Ramie, you looked that up, like eighth in defense since Doc took over.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, so it's not that the whole team is flustered. It's just Dame is just not hitting his shots right now. And I do think he'll break out of it, but it's frustrating. I compared this in our group chat earlier today that people are like really patient with Damian Lillard based on history. But if Chris Middleton was our second option and he was playing this way, people would be furious at Chris Middleton. There would be constant trade him. He's a bum. He's
there still are.
I know right now, yeah.
He could be the 15th out. He could be in the Thanasis role, and people would still. He's overpaid. I mean, I guess they say that about Thanasis too, but I digress. The Chris stuff is, and I get so often like I tweeted today with all this press tour, all these annoying quotes and crap. Like, this is why I like Chris. Like, you have to go to South Carolina to even interview Chris. I don't know if you guys remember Jim Ozarski of the Journal Sentinel did a feature on Chris. He had to go down there. Like, you have to go to Chris's hometown and like talk to his family. Like, he's not just like doing the podcast. Or I think he did JJ Redick's podcast once. I've tried to get him. I've DM'd him like 15 times. Chris Middleton, if you hear this, we would love to have you on the Eurostep. We will go to South Carolina. But it's a couple of people replied that he's hurt again. And I'm like, Kevin Durant stood under his ankle. What? It wasn't like he just randomly broke one day. He rolled his ankle because someone went in his landing space, which is a technical, and took Kawhi out for years. Like, this isn't like, it's like anytime he goes out. I remember in the Washington game, he had to leave that game, and it was the same thing. Like early this year, they're done. You couldn't have trusted this guy. They should have let him walk. Which again, we all know the salary cap means it made no sense to do that, but. And he was like miss a game and came back and looked good again and didn't have to ramp up. And I think this is going to be the same. But yeah, he has lost the benefit of the doubt with people and it's just because of injuries, I think. I mean, he carried them to a championship offensively. I mean, obviously Giannis took over in the game 6, but was the lead ball handler on the playoff run and got it done, which I thought, silly, naive me. All right, that silenced it forever. I mean, you can obviously fairly analyze Chris's game when he plays bad. Some of the turnovers kill all of us. But you can't just think, oh, he doesn't have it. Like, we saw it. We saw him do it. It happened in front of our eyes. But still, no, there's just like this. They got to get rid of him. They got to dump Chris. I get it all the time. And I don't even really engage anymore. It's just like, I mean, come on. I don't know what the guy has to do at this point. Like, just never miss a game. Play 40 minutes. Never miss a game.
I've told Drew to stay out of those dark corners of the Bucks internet. Just stay out of it, man. It's not good for you. It's not going to do any good for you.
Ramie, remember what I told you, though? Why the two people, every time, like when he's asked who I want as guests, I've said you, Ty, and I said Nathan Marzion, because you guys at least are sane. So it's like, I'm not the point. Okay? Like, it's just, there are times where I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, am I seeing something wrong? I'm like, nope, those two guys got the same take. I'm like, good.
Appreciate that.
I'm not being overly optimistic. No, it's like, I like the dark corners because it's like, wait, how poisonous am I being by being annoyed at Damian Lillard's shot? It's like, okay,
you just want to make sure you're not on that level of toxic Bucks fan.
Are they saying this, or is this is this acceptable?
Here's the other thing too about Ramie. Like, when he also has a tempered expectation of like how insane he's being or what his panic level is at. Because he gauges himself off of how mad am I about something. And if I'm like faces red screaming, he's like, all right, it's probably a 4 for everyone else. It's like I had a thought while I was stuck in traffic and it ruined the rest of my week. And he's like, all right, we could probably walk this back a second.
Ty, we talked a little bit about the defense. It's been better, and even before, like they made the Doc Griffin hiring official under Joe Prunty, it was an improvement over what we saw from Adrian Griffin. How much stock are you putting in that? How much faith do you have that at least the arrow is pointing in the right direction? Things are trending in the right direction when it comes to this Bucks defense, and it's for real.
I think probably they may not be 8th. The rest of the way. I think they've probably not played an incredible crop of teams. And I do look a little bit at I just question kind of what was going on with Denver in those games. I just can't imagine they were relatively healthy. They did lose KCP and Jamal Murray in the second one. But so a certain part of me is like, I think they just don't care right now. When I was watching the Denver games, they defended Denver very well. The Bucks, I mean, did a great job. Not taking anything away, but I don't quite look at it as like they stopped full strength Denver. But some good teams, including Denver, and they've played well. I think the adjustment, of course, is just like let's just keep Giannis in the paint, and we'll give up more threes, and we'll have to rotate more, and all this other stuff. But we're going to try and just run guys off the 3-point line, stick them in the floater range, or run them into Giannis and Brook, which is just a really hard place to have any success. And we've seen that work for a long time. And this is not exactly, but getting back to basically the Bud defense. And listen, the inflexibility of Bud was certainly a problem. And I do think he had kind of just lost connection with all the players. And I don't want to say totally lost the locker room. I just think there was a disconnect there. I mean, we would all probably kill to have him back at this point in time. But alas, decisions were made and we are where we are now. But his core philosophy was a successful one. I think the issue was being too married to it, right? Being too strictly tied to it, refusing to ever try anything else. I like some of the stuff Griffin did, some of the flexibility. I think especially the zone, I think we're going to keep seeing that here or there because that has been a good pivot and just a good way to keep Brook in the paint when teams kind of are able to pull him out, whether they go 4 or 5 out. But keeping Giannis around the rim, going through screens, like basically forcing teams into floaters when everything goes right is a good idea. It's a good math equation. And especially if the Bucks, if they're like the 10th or 12th defense, that should be more than enough given their offensive ceiling. And if they don't ever figure out the offense with this collection of players, it almost doesn't matter. I don't see any world where they could win the way they won in 21 with this group of just like, all right, we're going to get into 4 rock fights that we win. And maybe we get killed 1 or 2 games in the series. Maybe we go down 1 or 2 games, which they did almost every series. But we're going to find a rhythm defensively. We're going to work our tails off. We're going to win a 101-97 game. I don't think they'll just be able to do that. I don't think that's the personnel. I don't think that's the identity of this team. They want to be better defensively, but they need to be great offensively. So I think if you can just get to a respectable defense, even probably 15th, but really like 10th or 12th, I think that's more than good enough. And I think they can certainly do that. I think Doc has shown that. And I love that, the flip side of throwing his players under the bus, which I think is a valid thing to say, kind of holding these guys more accountable seems to be working so far. I think that was probably missing under Griffin, who seemed to go the other way and kind of just, all right, you guys want to run drop or run drop? You guys, Dame, you want to play the whole first quarter? All right, we'll do that. Like, I think a certain level of pushback is necessary to put guys in the right places, and I think it's working on the defensive end so far.
Drew and I have talked a lot about, and I don't like, and you've said like the chatter and like everybody seems to have a microphone. I know I'm saying that while I'm holding a microphone, but everybody seems to have a microphone. The mental gymnastics that people are doing and have been doing for years, and I don't know if I'm just oversensitive to it, Ty, when it comes to Giannis and his place in this league, like whether we're talking about the MVP race or I saw LeBron the other day, like listing off the guys who he thinks will be the face of the league when him and KD step away, and neither Giannis or Jokic were on there. And that's weird because they have 4 of the last 5 MVPs. Like it's an odd choice to keep those 2 guys off your list. Are we oversensitive to this, or are people really going out of their way seemingly to not involve Giannis in these MVP and face of the league type of conversations? And should we even care? Like as long as they just win basketball games and maybe another championship or 2.
I think we should care because I do think, not getting MVP consideration Giannis deserves. I mean, that people, those are, when you're doing historical rankings of players from bygone eras, what's the first thing you do? You run through the high-level accolades. How many MVPs? How many first teams this? How many championships, like scoring titles, whatever it may be, defensive player of the year. And, not getting an MVP and I don't know if he got straight up robbed at any point. I mean, I think, Jokic has been truly incredible these last few years. And I didn't think Embiid deserved his, but I don't know if that was probably Giannis's worst case of the last few years until this season. Well, it's both ways. People love a winner. He's doing maybe better than ever, but the team's not as good. It's a weird thing. I think he should be top 2 right now. I guess probably with Shea this year, and you can throw a Joker up there every year because he's just a sensational offense in himself every single season. The LeBron thing, I saw someone else had a similar. I think that's just age. Personally, it sounded like it seemed like they were only listing guys who were like 23, 24 and younger. I think the fear there is Giannis and Jokic are already going to be in their early 30s when LeBron and Steph are done. I mean, LeBron's probably going to play at least one more year. Steph's got a couple more in him. He's playing at a pretty high level still. So I think that's kind of what I took that as. Maybe that's just me being too generous to that. But I thought it was of like, okay, Giannis is going to be in his mid-30s not too long after. Those guys are done. Like, who's next? Who's going to carry the league and that kind of thing? But I do think it sucks. I think it's like me. I can only speak for me in particular. I'm almost just like worn down from trying to argue Giannis's place at this point, whether it's the face of the league stuff, the MVP stuff, having to do it year after year. And I feel like him being slotted too low year after year. Like, I don't want to accept those kind of things and just like let it slide, but it just gets exhausting to every year have to be like, I know you guys are sick of him because he still plays in Milwaukee and, he doesn't do fancy dribble pull-ups all the time, but Giannis is still better than all the guys you're talking about. And that should matter at some point. That should matter at every point. What else is the point? He's better. I mean, they make these lists. Why isn't Jason Tatum MVP? Giannis is better. What's the point of the award? Are we just finding guys? We're just going through and like, who gets it now? Like, I don't understand why we're so far from, all right, why don't we just say who's the best player on the best team? And it just feels like NBA has like tricked themselves more than any other league into being like, no, we need to, no one can win it 3 times. And we can't have a guy win it 3 years in a row. And you need to do this, and you need to win a championship first. And why? LeBron should have 8 of them. Like, I don't know why we play this weird game with NBA MVP where it's like, okay, one guy can't get them all. He probably should. It doesn't make any sense. Like, oh, Steve Nash needs one. Really? Was there any point in Steve Nash's career when you're listing out who do I want to start a team and Steve Nash is the first guy? I wish they just called it like best player of the league. And I know they're all called MVP, but I feel like basketball has the worst time of just being like, let's just give it to the guy who's the greatest. And we can all tell. And I have no problem if Jokic gets some for that reason. I think he has the case to be right up there. Like, damn, he is awesome. Okay. But like, is Anthony Edwards above Giannis? No, he's not as good. Why? Why do we do this? No, he's not more valuable than Giannis. Like, it's on his face silly, but still, you look at these ratings and Giannis is 5th and a bunch of guys who are not even close to him but now I got myself worked up. I said I was exhausted and resigned, and just thinking about it, I'm back here now.
Yeah, brought it up yesterday, like because Ramie was doing a comedy show. I don't know if you know this. He was booked for comedy shows to
all weekend. Yeah.
The funniest joke of that entire weekend was when the discourse turned to the MVP should just go to the best player on the best team. And that was Jason Tatum. And that's why my eyes lit up when you said Jason Tatum. Because I was like, last year, that was the argument all the Bucks fans were making is best player on the best team. Why not? And they're like, that's not the factors that makes you an MVP. And it's the team that's around you. And I was like, it's like anything to get away from the Giannis talk. It's literally like they avoid him like he's got COVID.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy.
It's the stuff just moves around. And I think the best player on the best team, it doesn't just mean the number one guy on the best team. It's like the best player on the team who's really good is the way I read best player on the not just literally the standings. That's why I think Giannis, it's like, I think it should be him or Jokic or, if I haven't deep dove into Shea. Maybe Shea is having good enough of a season. Like, I'm not going to strictly say no, he could never. I mean, he is pretty incredible as well. And I'm not saying it has to be one of those 2 guys, but I do think sometimes you just get this feeling like we're turning over stones to not say Giannis. And at this point, Jokic's probably there too. I mean, I think Bucks and Nuggets fans can maybe unite over like, hey, we have the best 2 guys, and we're not maybe having our greatest seasons right now, but it feels like just people are sick of talking about them. So now it's all these younger guys who are also in these face of the league conversations.
Well, and
no, go ahead, Drew.
I thought last year Jokic had the best case for an MVP out of his 2 MVPs. But then Giannis had a historic season last year, but it was all the narrative thing because, they love the narrative. Oh, do you want to live in a time where Joel Embiid won or never won an MVP? Was he the MVP?
I want to live in that time.
And
I would love to sign me up for that time.
The 2 clowns that I love to throw tomatoes at, it's seriously Tatum and Embiid. I just love to just go in on those 2. And this year, I was even making the argument earlier in the year that Embiid was playing like the guy they gave an award to last year.
Yeah.
Like, he was absolutely making his 2nd in a row MVP case before he got hurt. but also there's a lot of stat padding in there. There's a lot of team ducking in there, I don't doubt that Embiid was hurt when he played against San Antonio, but you wanted to go out there and you wanted to nuke a G League team with a unicorn on it, but you couldn't play against Denver. You were hurt that whole week, and then you ended up getting actually hurt. You could have sat out those games, and you would have still been eligible to be an MVP. Now you're screwed. Now we're trying to find somebody else. And I will say that I think SGA does deserve a little bit more consideration, but also I could do mental gymnastics to take him right out of that one because he was drafted the same year as Ja Morant, and that was the guy that everybody wanted to be the new face of the league. It was Ja before everyone started following him on Instagram, and that became an issue. So, like right now, it's like, well, SGA is the next guy in line there. What if Ja Morant were healthy? Would we be seeing the same Oklahoma City team if Desmond Bane was still playing?
You got to go through 12 guys in Grizzlies hypotheticals to get to them being healthy enough for Ja to win MVP.
But still, it's just like those are the things where it's like, okay, it's like, yeah, you can compare and you can say, but what about this? Because this guy didn't play or this guy didn't. It's like, no, it's who's eligible. And it's Giannis is by far, I think, the MVP this season. Because without him and the way the team played, this team's bad.
G League, not play-in at wrong level. Play-in, they'd be a play-in team right now. No question.
Yeah, if it wasn't Giannis's willpower winning us the games, it's like I don't know what more you can say about that than a guy who just puts the entire team in a backpack and drags them across the fucking dirt. Like that's all it is. Like he's the guy. I don't know. It's just it's upsetting to me too. I get annoyed. Like the darkest corner of the internet, Ramie. It's Stephen A. Smith. That is the worst side of the internet.
And I was just gonna say, Ty, maybe I am like, maybe I'm not giving enough like credence to the problem when it comes to NBA talk, NBA media, NBA narratives, because there are a lot of really good, really smart podcasts out there like yours. We're talking with Ty Windisch of the Gyro podcast, but man, a lot of the national discussion when it comes to the NBA is really kind of dumb and almost often has nothing to do with the game. Like today, I saw a clip on Twitter from First Take, and they were and it was JJ Redick, Stephen A, and Shannon Sharp. They were having the new next face of the NBA discussion that we were just having, and Shannon Sharp brought up, like, who was he talking about? So he was talking about somebody, and he was like, they're not married. LeBron has a wife, and Steph has they have
like the presidential thing.
Yeah, he even compared it to the presidential thing. He was like, they have settled home lives.
If I would have married the girl I dated when I was 23, I'd be screwed right now.
I think the problem is like people like that crap. I mean, if nobody watched it, they wouldn't put it on there. I think really it's like the most important thing is, and this is going to sound like I'm like an eco war. Maybe I am an eco warrior too, given it's 50 degrees in February, but like you need to be a conscientious consumer. Like, and even like dunking on, like not us on this show necessarily, but like quote tweeting their videos and sharing their videos. Even if you're saying this is the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life, bigger number, better person is how all of these things work. And you guys, I'm sure, know this from having insight on, the business, whether it be comedy, sports, whatever, radio, TV, all of it. It's all the same, right? It's like, okay, what's getting the eyeballs? And that's what we're going to go to. And I do think like it, it's really hard. I mean, all the time, I'm like, I want to go out there and just say this is idiotic, but I've really tried to not directly, and it's, don't matter at all in the grand scheme, but I think everyone, like, if you want less of this, like, don't consume that content. Like that's the only way, because people keep tuning in and those things. And now the new thing, I don't even know if anyone cares about TV ratings. Now it's, okay, who goes viral, right? What clip is going viral? What is everyone commenting on, sharing, quote tweeting, reposting, all that stuff. And the more it goes around, it's just going to continue to be more. I mean, it's ESPN, it feels like is like tripling down on these guys now. I mean, I saw JJ Redick talking about Doc today, and maybe he was right, maybe not, but he's doing the same First Take, like yelling, like, attacking a point. Like it's, like the way those other guys talk. And soon it's just going to be four guys constantly yelling, and it sucks. And, there is such great coverage of the game. And every time I watch a football broadcast, I do get jealous, because you get like, all right, here's how zone duo has changed the Chiefs season and, the way they're rushing and Tony Romo doing gap integrity. And the NBA just gets like, that guy's not married, so he's probably not going to be face of the league, or, who wants out next, or where's this person going? The Cavs win 50 straight games. It's like, well, that's why Donovan Mitchell's going to be a Knick. And it's like, come on, can we look at what's happening? Like, can we not be like, oh, wow, Sam Merrill's a revelation. Sam Merrill having an insane season. But do we hear about Sam Merrill? I mean, I do, because I'm tuned into like niche Cavs podcasts. But no, it's like, where's Donovan Mitchell going to go? And that's pretty much it with the Cavs. It's like, they won 14 out of 15. They are not going to ever re-sign their best player. And it's like, damn, man, it's just tiring. It's like, put some focus on the games, not all on transactions and rumors and drama and, whatever, some of these narrative, like the award, that I think is why the awards convo suck now. Because it's all just like, it's not even close to basketball anymore. It hasn't been for a couple of years. And it sucks because I think basketball is great. I think it's probably the most underrated of the main sports right now, because all people hear about is the next trade or the next dynasty or who subtweeted who or all this crap that just has never, ever mattered.
I do right now, though, because of trade rumors, I do have my Golden State Warriors 34 Giannis jersey already in NBA.com. So I'm ready to buy in July because I'm following Greek wherever he wants to go. that was the craziest one. I think Ramie and I sent us that AI generated whatever trade thing with it was Draymond Green, Giannis, and Steph all in Golden State jerseys. I think we almost sent them to each other at the same time. Like, did you just see this? This is insane. It's like
it's ridiculous. And I don't know. I don't even know who that little kid is that asked Dame his dream starting five, and people are making something. And I don't care if he's a kid. I'm just going to say it. He's annoying. And I don't know who gave him a microphone or a press credential. That kid, all his stuff that I saw come out of All-Star Weekend was very, very annoying. And I don't know why he's causing trouble for the Bucks. And I don't know. I mean, it is pretty obvious that Dame should have had Giannis on that starting five, but also who cares? And who gave this kid a microphone and a credential and why?
Well, I saw a lot of people point out the kid got Jokic too, and he asked him best European, and all the guys Dame said were American. So did he say best American? Did he say guys you haven't played with? Who knows? I mean, the interview's all chopped up, so it's impossible to know exactly what was said. But I'm not going to be insecure about Dame. I still think there's just this insecurity about is he going to leave? And I mean, look at the way he's playing. I mean, our team's lining up. I mean, frankly, not to be shitty, but it's I don't think there's a bunch of teams banging down Dame's door hey, come here right now. We're trying to give up the farm. And he's also said all the right things on the actual conversations when he's directly asked. He likes playing in Milwaukee. He said years ago he wanted to play with Giannis. He said, Giannis is a guy, happy to be here, all this stuff locked in. And I just feel like the first sign of anything that could potentially be wrong, there's this Wisconsin sports fans innate we're not good enough for him. He's leaving. He wanted to be in Miami, all this. And I'm not buying it. I think that guy's a winner. I think he's going to be just fine too, even though, the long slump certainly has me concerned. I don't think it's because Dame doesn't want to be here. I think that's loser stuff. I don't think he's a loser. And maybe I'll be proven wrong, but I really don't think so.
Yeah, I don't buy that either. I had a friend actually message me during when we lost a couple games in a row, and he started saying that he's afraid that Damian Lillard is gonna ask out this summer. And I was like, why would he even do that? And then it turns out this guy used to be a Chicago Bulls fan, so he's been burned by his organization, and now he's taking it up here, and he's like, sports are just like that. It's like, no, it's really not. Dame's not short like that. Giannis is cool. Everyone's cool. It's just, I don't know. It's not as bad as what people think it is. I said they have 3 years to get this done between Dame, Giannis. And then if it doesn't work in 3 years, you got to start looking, how do we get assets for one of these guys? And it'll be Dame. But it's how do you get assets then? But that's way down the road. You should just be having fun watching this right now.
That is Windisch. Check him out on the Sorry, go ahead, Ty. Do you have more? Go ahead.
I was just saying it hasn't been as fun as it should be, but I think it will be fun again before we get to the end of it. I mean, I just think these guys are going to figure it out. I think getting Doc in there for more time will be good. And I mean, talent just usually wins to a certain degree in the NBA. And I just can't imagine that Dame and Giannis aren't going to find a way to go on a pretty strong stretch run here and be a real problem in the playoffs.
That's Ty Windisch. Check out the Euro Step podcast along with Rohan Kadi. We got to get him on the show sometime soon. Ty, always appreciate the time, man. It's good catching up and seeing you and talking to you again. And keep up the great work on the Euro Step. Let's keep NBA talk sane, at least in some corners, my man. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me. I will continue doing my very small part in that, and I know you guys will as well. So thanks again for having me on the show.
I do. Drew loses it sometimes, but we appreciate it.
I do accuse referees of being terrorists sometimes. So
no comments on if I disagree or agree with that take.
Thanks, Ty. We'll talk again soon, my man.
Yep. See you guys.
There's Ty Windisch. Check out the Euro Step podcast. And Drew, I know you're a big fan. You said at the top you wanted him and Nathan Marzion on the show. So 2 for 2 so far. You let me know who else you want to talk Bucks with, and I'll see if I can track them down.
All right. Well, let's try to get Chris Middleton before they do.
All right. This has been episode 21 of the Ramie and Drew podcast. We will talk to you next time.